Atletico Madrid make money moves. 7 new players for the Colchonero, and they might not be done yet. But are they any good?
Oh, you talking to me?
Zlatan Ibrahimovic is the best pro wrestler in all of football. You got to hear what he said to Hercules Gomez about the best player in MLS. And I'm joined by Sulaiman Folarin as we talk a little AFCON on the eve of the AFCON final. Algeria will try and win their second title as they take on Senegal. Hello.
Hey guys!
Hello and welcome to Post to Post. That's Sulaiman Folarin. I'm
up,
Andres Cordero. This man is an expert in African football, but not just African football. He's well-rounded. So we're talking about quite a few different topics today.
Yeah, we definitely are. We're going to dive into a couple of things. We'll go La Liga, obviously. Right. We'll talk women's soccer, women's football, and then we'll, make our way back to AFCON.
Okay, so we'll start with daily news. I think that's the first thing we do, right? Daily news?
Yep.
Fire up the daily news.
Let's go.
Okay, so daily news starts with Atletico Madrid. We've now signed 7 new players this summer. Now, granted, they've sold a bunch of players. They got rid of Antoine Griezmann. They got rid of Diego Godin. They ended up selling Diego Godin. And they brought in 2 new players today, both for the backline. Kieran Trippier from Spurs for $28 million US. As well as Mario Hermoso, center back from Espanyol, younger, 24 years old, a player that had been linked to Real Madrid and Barcelona previously, to shore up that backline. Sully, of the 7 players they picked up so far, and they might not be done yet because there's still some whispers about James Rodriguez and this and that, I think any of the 7 or all of the 7 are good enough to potentially start for Atletico Madrid.
I agreed. And I have to say, Atletico Madrid has been the busiest club this summer in terms of transfers that have come in. The one player that has surprised me is Kieran Trippier, and here's why. We all knew that he had mentioned at the end of last season that his days were numbered at Spurs, but it wasn't something that was, 1, rumored, but 2, I never expected him to move to Spain because how many English players have moved abroad
and
have been that
20th
successful
in La Liga?
Exactly. And what's a success story is one of the things that you have to look at. But he's a solid international. He plays for England. He scored that great goal against Croatia in the World Cup, that free kick, and he had a fabulous season for Spurs this season. So I expect him to be able to slot in. Hermoso on the other end, he has some big shoes to fill. Diego Godin, he's pretty much been a god at Atletico the whole time he's been there. For him to move to Inter now, it's going to be some huge shoes for him to fill. Granted, Madrid was looking at him, and also Barca as well too. But it's going to be tough for them.
Yeah, they've lost big names. Antoine Griezmann is going to be a difficult player to fill. Although it did seem like Atleti were more eager for the Griezmann signing to be announced by Barcelona than Barcelona were. But they've got Joao Felix, a youngster with a lot of upside from Benfica. Only 1 season of pro top flight football behind him, but looks very, very promising.
Hector Herrera.
4 defenders. Before we get to the mission, 4 defenders, right? Trippier, Felipe from Porto, Mario Hermoso, we mentioned. Renan Lodi, by the way, who you've seen play for Atletico Paranaense here in the Copa Libertadores, was in the Sudamericana last season, helping them win that title. Really talented left back, and not just that, the only left back currently on the roster for Atletico.
If you look at their roster, it's very thin.
Yeah.
It's a very thin roster, which is why I agree with you. They're probably not done yet in terms of signings that are coming in.
And they're thin everywhere except center midfield, right? Because they've got 2, 4, 5, 6 central midfielders. Granted, they play usually Saul out wide, Koke out wide. Those guys are central midfielders that also play outside. That's the one spot. Diego Simeone's old position, surprise, surprise, is the one spot where Atletico Madrid are absolutely loaded.
Yes, and
you mentioned Hector Herrera.
Hector Herrera coming in from Porto. In all honesty, Saul and Koke are 2 players that they have to play. Right. They have been on that team for the longest. They have the experience. They have they have that weight on their shoulders. They definitely have to play. Thomas Partey. The question now is where does he fit in into the whole equation with Hector Herrera coming in?
Disappointing AFCON
for Ghana as a whole. Yeah. For Ghana as a whole, not just him, but it's been a disappointment for them. But at club level, he plays in a different way. He plays a different style. So, and I know for a fact that Diego Simeone likes him as a player, and he brings that physicality, that toughness for them. Right. So it's interesting to see. There's this song by Lupe Fiasco, the show goes on. Okay. Griezmann leaving, the show has to go on, irrespective of whatever happens. Atletico Madrid, all these players they've brought in, shows that sign that they at least want to compete with Barcelona and Real Madrid. Might not be able to push them for the title, but at least it shows competitive spirit from them, and you have to give them credit for that.
Mentioned Lupe Fiasco. Now my head is going kick, push.
Yeah, kick, push.
Anyway, you think where Atletico getting the money, right? So they're spending a ton of all of the Antoine Griezmann money right away. That money was spent before he arrived.
Everyone forgets Hernandez went to beIN as well.
For 90 million.
Yes.
That's where I was going.
That's where part of that money is coming from.
They're actually still in the black this summer.
Oh,
so in net spending, right, they've spent $280 million, roughly $280 million in new signings. Sounds like a ton, except that they've sold $350 million worth of players.
But look at these two players. They came in at a great bargain price.
They did.
They came in at a very good bargain price because you have an experienced player in Trippier who's at the tail, 26, 27 years old?
28, I want to say.
28?
Right.
So he's in his prime right now.
And Hermoso's 24, and he also came in at a bargain, essentially.
Exactly. So he's coming in at, 25, 30 million at best. That's nothing.
Right.
But he's also a player that he's a well-tested player, someone that played in the Champions League finals. So it's a great bargain. It's a great deal for them. Hermoso, on the other hand, he's high up in everyone's list. Another bargain for them. So you look at a lot of the players outside of João Felix.
Yeah.
All those other guys have been bargain deals.
Right.
Have been
Yes.
great
I don't think
deals
anybody's
for
going to
them.
call 17-year-old João Felix a bargain at 134
At
million.
all. At all.
But everybody
At all.
else is 34 million down. Marcos Llorente, as you mentioned, good signing from Real Madrid. Felipe was 23 million. Renan Lodi, who I think could have a massive upside, especially at the left back position, which is not all that stacked.
Yes.
He was 23 million, and then Hector Herrera was a free signing. And so when I talked about the net spending, they're $77 million in the black.
Yes. That means
$77 million
they can
enough
still
to bring
get
a James Rodriguez?
Why not?
That's what I'm thinking.
I mean, because the reality is, because James is supposed to go to Napoli, correct?
Right.
And if I would probably pick Atletico Madrid over Napoli,
Okay.
but that's just me.
Because it's La Liga.
It's La Liga.
They've been in the Champions League finals a couple of seasons.
And it's a league that he's also very comfortable with, a league that he also
City,
knows very
where he
well,
lived.
and a city that he's lived in. He probably hasn't sold his house in Madrid, so it's not a long drive for him at all.
A few comments, by the way. The gamble is going to be if João Felix is going to be worth the money they spent on him. That from Ike Walton. That's going to be hard to live up to $144 million price tag, but he's got a ton of football ahead of him to try and prove that.
If you've seen this kid play, I mean, not a lot of people have seen Portuguese league, but
Right.
we watched him in Europa League.
Electrifying. He's electrifying.
I mean, the kid is,
Right.
his upside is immense.
Right.
If he doesn't have the attitude that Ousmane Dembele has, the sky's the limit for him.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at probably a player of the caliber of an Mbappe. I mean, and I know that's pushing a little bit,
Right.
but you're talking about a player who can do similar to what
Paulo
Mbappe
Mesa.
did.
Paulo Mesa is a believer. He says they are good moves.
Yeah, definitely.
Frank Leon is all about James. James would be a great cap to Atleti's transfer window. There is a sense that they do need that cherry on top, right? Because
They do.
some of these moves will feel a bit lateral. Mario Hermoso is a terrific player, but when you lose Diego Godin, he's sort of irreplaceable. Now they've got good. They've got Savic.
Yeah.
They've got Jimenez who can play in that position. They've picked up Felipe, but nothing like a Godin. And Hermoso has upside and could be that.
Yeah.
If they really wanted to churn a good transfer window in which they rejuvenated the squad and made it younger into a brilliant transfer window, it would take a James or someone of that caliber to be that cherry on top.
Yeah, I agree.
Atletico Madrid are going to be stacked. That's Ike Walton again.
In
Thanks
caps,
for chiming
too.
in.
In caps.
Stacked, all caps, yeah. Nesta Boateng is getting ahead of himself. He's already talking AFCON. But
We'll get to that, Nesta.
We're with you, man. And hello to Wilson Obulikeme from UAE. What's good?
Alrighty.
Thanks for joining us.
The Emirates.
We got anything else on Atletico, or should we move on?
We might as well
I think we're going to move on from
Yeah.
Atletico Madrid because Zlatan Ibrahimovic is my favorite pro wrestler in football.
My favorite,
No one,
one of my favorite football players.
no
of all
one
time.
talks trash like Zlatan.
Yes.
And no one talks like Zlatan, and his favorite subject is himself.
Yes.
So Hercules Gomez, former U.S. international, very likable dude, was interviewing Zlatan for a four-letter network. We'll just call him that. And he told him about Carlos Vela, that Carlos Vela might be the best player in Major League Soccer. In fact, I've actually got it written down here, and it's worth reading. I'm going to do the whole Rachel Maddow thing where she reads directly from the transcript because Hercules Gomez,
Someone likes Rachel Maddow.
you said you're the best player in MLS. There's another player, Carlos Vela. He's got 19 goals, 12 assists, and his team is leading MLS. Do you still consider yourself the best player in MLS?
And I love Zlatan's response.
Which is?
Zlatan said that, I mean, I'm paraphrasing here. He asked how old Carlos Vela was. He said 29. And he said, where was I playing at 29? In Europe. He said, no, not even, you can't even compete. And Zlatan is right. If there's one player that I actually enjoyed interviewing in my career, it was Zlatan Ibrahimovic. I remember when he was at Paris Saint-Germain, and he talked about himself in the third person.
Right.
Zlatan will do this. Zlatan will do that. It killed me because there was a certain sense of arrogance behind
No,
it.
no, it's
But-
quiet, quiet confidence.
But it was so it's
Answer the
confidence.
question from Frank Leon, though. Who wins Zlatan versus Zlatan?
Oh.
It's a trick question. I think the
It
whole
is.
world implodes.
Yes,
Like,
the whole world definitely implodes. Yeah, because here is a guy. It's confidence sprinkled with some arrogance on top of it. Because he backed it up. The question I asked was, there was a goalkeeper in League One that hadn't conceded up until that time.
Okay.
He was going for a record, and he said he hasn't come up against Zlatan.
Right.
And when the game came up,
Of course
he
he
scored.
scored. Yeah.
So the man backs the trash
Yeah.
up. So you can't take that away from him.
I love that when presented-
minus other things that we talked about, and just the way he reacted, the way he spoke about himself in that, third person when he talks. When he just talks, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Zlatan's a great quote.
The immediate response to being hit with Carlos Vela's stats was brilliant, because he was asked, "Do you still consider yourself the best player?" And he said, "By far." Carlos Vela is in his prime at 29 years old, and he plays in MLS. Like, he's taking a shot
At
where
MLS.
his paycheck comes
Comes
from,
from.
like, just because his ego is that important.
Yes,
And-
because you saw the video when he first arrived. They said Zlatan welcomes LA.
yeah, he took a
It
full.
wasn't Galaxy welcomes Zlatan.
He took out a
It's
full-page ad.
Zlatan welcomes LA. It's the other way. So that's the type of person that he is. That's his personality.
Here's the rest. Here's the rest of that transcript, by the way. He asked him, "How old is Carlos Vela?" I said, "Carlos Vela is 29." 29. He's playing in MLS and he's in his prime. When I was 29, where was I?
Exactly.
You were in Europe. Big difference.
Exactly.
And the only way that could have been better is
Mic
if
drop.
if he looked straight at the camera. Big
Yes.
difference.
Yep.
Exactly. And that would have made it for me. So Zlatan Ibrahimovic is the best personality in Major League Soccer. Best
He
player, and I
is.
think we can
He
agree
is.
on that.
And then the reality is, even at his age, he's still performing on the pitch.
Yeah.
There are lots of players who come here and just take paychecks
Right.
and just sit on the beach or do nothing. Zlatan is actually out there kicking butt, for lack of a better term.
Scoring worldies.
Yeah, I mean, his first game, for crying out loud, it was a worldie.
Right.
It was a goal of the season contender, in my opinion. If it wasn't even the goal of the season,
Right.
So that's the type of player that he is. So kudos to Zlatan. Please keep giving us those kind of nuggets, because I love it.
You can't out Zlatan. You can't. I also love the fact that Zlatan could be used in some, like, Zlatan could be a verb.
Yes.
It could be an adjective.
Yes.
It's a brilliant marketing.
There's a commercial. I'm not going to give it away. There's a beer commercial where the gentleman always talks. You know the commercial, the guy with the beard.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Everyone knows the commercial. Everyone. No, the beer commercial.
Okay.
Where the guy talks
like medieval?
like an older guy. He takes quotes and then he turns them around.
The most interesting man.
Exactly. Zlatan needs to do that commercial. They need to start.
players.
Yes, they need to have Zlatan do that commercial, because
It's more interesting.
he's more interesting. His quotes are worldies. They're the next level.
And not afraid to square up against his teammates, as he did with Oguchi Onyewu
Recently.
at Milan. He's
Oh
done it
no,
more
he
recently
did.
as
He
well?
did that. He did that at Galaxy as
I'm
well.
not surprised.
Too. Yeah.
I am surprised he never squared up against Pep Guardiola when he was at Barcelona, because they seem to not get along so great.
They never
Said-
did.
Said basically he bought a sports car and drove me like a Fiat or something along those lines.
Yes.
John Kiel is very optimistic about Atleti's chances to sign James at a budget, because I mentioned they might have 77 million to spend. He said 40 for James and 30 to bring in a few supportive players. How are you gonna get James for 40 million?
It's going to be tough. At least 50. You look at least close to 50 for someone like James.
Right. And even then, I think one of the issues right now that Napoli are having is that they're not able to meet Real Madrid's asking price.
That's
My
it.
guess is Madrid are not going to sell a player of James' caliber to their city rivals Atletico Madrid at a bargain, right? So somebody's gonna have to pay up, especially with Atleti.
Yep. You're going to have to cough up the dough.
Okay, speaking of the Spanish capital, we're going to move on from, talked about Atletico Madrid a moment ago. Well, Real Madrid's women's team, which is technically not Real Madrid yet, but it is owned by Real Madrid.
Tacon.
Tacon, yep. Club Deportivo Tacon,
Yep.
in the Spanish capital. Were just promoted for the first time in their history to the top flight, taken over by Real Madrid. They will rebrand in 2021 as Real Madrid.
2020.
Yeah, for the 2020-2021 season,
yep.
as Real Madrid's women's team. For now, they remain Tacon, and they've just signed their first player. So technically, I think we could bend it a little bit to say Real Madrid have signed their first women's player.
Yep,
It
Asllani.
is Kosovare Asllani.
Great player at the Women's World Cup. Now, this
Swedish
has
international?
been. Let's just backtrack and let's just realize that we have had an overdose of football this summer.
Right.
We're talking on the 20 World Cup, the Women's World Cup, the AFCON, the Copa America.
Yes.
There were tons of great games at the Women's World Cup. Sweden was one of them. This was a great player at the World Cup. I remember watching her, and also I remember the third place game against England. She gave those English players fits. She was one of their best players for Sweden.
Yeah, scored against England in the third place match as well.
Yes, and to cap it up, apparently her club in Sweden
Yep.
released her. They came to a mutual agreement to cancel her contract 6 months earlier. No one knew what the reason was, but now we find out she's signing with Real Madrid.
Right. So she's got the picture. With the only problem there is that it's not going to be the Real Madrid kit yet.
Yes.
But you can forgive her. You know, she's excited about it, and why not? She's still in her prime at 29 years old.
Yes.
So it's exciting that Real Madrid are actually, giving this a real goal. They're going out and signing proper players.
Yeah.
It's not something that, it's not a PR thing.
Something
for them.
that Barcelona has done more than they have. Because
Right.
Barcelona has actually invested in their women's team.
Yeah, which the Real Madrid now seem to be en route to doing as well. They've signed their first player. Again, the 29-year-old Swedish international, Kosovari Asllani, is Madrid's first player. Now, one of the reasons that we brought you in this entire week is, it's been a week, 2 weeks?
A week.
Been around,
Yeah,
a week.
it's about a week, yeah.
It feels, time
It
flies when you're around.
feels longer, right?
So the Africa Cup of Nations final is tomorrow. Algeria and Senegal. Algeria trying to win their second ever AFCON title. Senegal, who have had some brilliant generations before. In fact, Aliou Cisse, the manager right now, was the captain of that golden generation in 2002 that reached the quarterfinals.
Missed the penalty in
the
2002
AFCON
finals against Cameroon. Yep.
Aliou Boukar was the Cameroonian goalkeeper who stopped his penalty. One of the most dramatic penalty
With his
shootouts that I've
feet.
ever seen, by the way.
With his feet,
Yeah, it was a poor penalty, by the way, by Aliou Cisse.
Yeah.
But we do have the final tomorrow, and we'll talk a little bit about the AFCON final, but some of the players that have impressed you and where they might be going. There's one guy on the list that you put that I'm going to get him out of the way first because I think he's the one that our viewers would be most familiar with, is Samu Chukwueze.
Yes.
Because he's been playing at Villarreal. He was not supposed to be a starter for Villarreal at the start of the season. He was supposed to play with the reserve team.
Yes.
When he got an opportunity early in the season, there was no going back. He was electrifying to watch. He played for Nigeria. You're in Nigeria.
He was exciting for Nigeria. And here was the crazy part. He wasn't supposed to be at the AFCON.
Right.
There was discussion between the FA whether to take him to the under-20s. And then one of my best friends, who I've known for about over 20 years, is a columnist in Nigeria. He wrote this op-ed for the biggest paper in Nigeria saying, if Samuel Chukwueze can run rings around Barcelona players and Madrid players, he deserves to play at the AFCON and not at the under-20s. And that was part of the push. There was a lot of push for him to play the AFCON. There was his mindset that he was too young. He was 19 going on 20.
Now, right?
You know, he didn't have the experience. He had only a few caps under his belt. This boy played like a seasoned pro at the AFCON. He took people on. He played with no sense of inhibition. He just had this idea of, I'm going forward, head down. You better try your best to stop me. He's an exciting player, and he's only going to get better. I feel like, he needs maybe a year or two more at Atletico, at Villarreal.
Yep.
No rush. Possibly move to a bigger club after that. Who knows? It could be a Madrid.
What's interesting is there was a bit of fake news flying around all season long because people thought that Villarreal had basically fallen asleep at the wheel and hadn't signed him to a longer deal, and that his contract was going to be up. And we were watching his performances. The kid came out of virtually nowhere. I call him a kid because he was 19 years old when we saw him for the first time. Just recently turned 20, and everyone was sort of watering at the mouth to sign him potentially for free or potentially cheap.
Even Ray Hudson was.
But he's under contract until 2023, so hands off or pay up basically because he's going to be worth it.
This boy's going to be worth at least 50 million USD.
That's conservative. I believe based on what I saw from him at Villarreal. By the way, a down year for Villarreal. Villarreal were struggling. It wasn't like he was in the best conditions to really show his best football, and yet he was fun to watch. Let's move on because Youssouf Belaili has been arguably, I would say, the best individual player story at this AFCON. Here's a player who served a 2-year ban for doping for cocaine. Hell of a drug. In 2015, comes back in 2017, and he might not have even been considered a definite to make this roster. And yet he has been lighting it up for Algeria. A big part of the reason why they're here.
Rewind. If Yacine Brahimi starts, there is no Youssouf Belaili.
Right. Brahimi got injured.
Yes. So people need to put those things in perspective. When you have your opportunity, there's a saying in the black community, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. He stayed ready.
Right.
Then he took that opportunity when it came to him. If he wasn't ready, somebody else is taking that spot. Yacine Brahimi's out. This boy has lit up this AFCON. Scored the goal for Algeria against Senegal.
In the group stage, the 1-0, the winner. Yeah. Scored the first one against Guinea as well.
Yes. The Senegalese team will have to game plan for him tomorrow, amongst other players. I think it's prime time for him to move. He plays at Esperance in Tunisia.
Yes.
And it's time for him to move to a European club. Could be somewhere in Turkey, just for at least an initial soft landing.
Right.
He definitely needs to move.
See, the only thing with that is he's 28 years old, 27. So basically that ban came at the worst time possible in his
Yes,
career.
it was in his
And-
peak, his
but,
prime.
But these performances that he's having now come at the best time because he's got one season left on his contract.
Yes.
So Esperance can cash in now,
Now,
this
right
summer,
now, yeah.
and he can go somewhere important.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next player because this was one that actually you're going to have to school me on. Tanzania's Bwana Samata,
Yep.
who plays for Genk in
Yes.
Belgium.
Golden Boot winner in the Belgian league. He was also the Ebony Boot winner. That's a title that's been won by the likes of Vincent Kompany, won by the likes of Romelu Lukaku, Daniel Amokachi. This guy right here was exciting to watch at the AFCON. Even in the qualifiers, it was exciting to watch. There's been rumors that Galatasaray wants him. Lazio wanted him before we went into the AFCON. I expect a move because Tanzanian football had been in the doldrums for 39 years. They hadn't been to the African Cup of Nations since 1980. Now they're back at the AFCON, and he's their captain. He's in his prime. A move to one of those two clubs would definitely do him some good.
Okay.
It will also open up that part of Africa because most people don't know that Tanzania and Kenya, the predominant language they speak there is Swahili, not English. Tanzanians tweet in Swahili, they don't tweet in English. The majority of them do.
All right.
So that, and then there's a huge population there. There's a huge opportunity for proper, exciting, young, raw talented footballers coming from there. So
We got two more.
his move would definitely help.
We got two more. Ismail Assar for Senegal. I think people will be more familiar with him than they would have been with.
He plays for
Samata.
Rennes.
Right.
He plays for Rennes. I think he's still a young player. I saw him play for Rennes last season. He played. He was the guy who got the penalty for Senegal against Tunisia. Exciting young kid. He looks like a stick,
Right.
but he moves. He's beautiful to watch on the ball. Really exciting young talent. I hope he plays on Friday for Senegal.
Right, so still a question as to who's going to line up in front with
That's-
Mbaye Niang for
Yes.
sure,
And
Sadio Mane
Sadio
for
Mane.
sure, and the other question is who's going to be the one on that right wing.
Yes. So
maybe Ismail Assar.
So I hope he plays because then people can actually get to see what we're talking about this young kid. He is electrifying.
Right. Sadly for Senegal, no Kalidou Koulibaly, arguably
Yes.
the best defender in Africa, and he's going to miss
The best
a dumb
defender,
suspension, a controversial yellow card.
Best
Could be the best defender in the
defender
world.
in Serie A last season.
Could be the best
too.
defender on the planet, to be honest. He's in the conversation, I would say. And lastly, the second Algeria. We started with Algeria. We'll go to Algeria again. The best name at AFCON, by the
Yes.
way. With all respect to the entire Zimbabwe team, Baghdad
Baghdad
Bounedjah.
Bounedjah. A nuisance.
Yeah.
Lack of a better term, a nuisance to opposing defenders. He gets busy. My only problem with him at this AFCON is, as busy as he gets, he doesn't convert.
Right.
He had at least 3 chances against Nigeria and doesn't convert any of them.
Right. For a guy who scored 38 goals in the Qatari League for Al Sadd.
For Al Sadd last season. I think, granted, he was like the highest goal scorer in Europe.
He left all those goals in Qatar.
Yeah, he literally
scored
left,
one from the penalty spot,
He
so.
left his scoring boots in Qatar.
Yeah.
Literally. So he's one player that I feel like a move would also benefit him. He's never played in Europe. So a move to a soft land like say maybe a Turkey would be great for him as well too. But he got to watch out for him tomorrow. Belaili, Sa, and this guy right here.
Right.
This guy is going to give Kouyaté and Salif Sane the business tomorrow.
He's excellent hold-up play, by the way. Even without the
Yes.
goals, he's really been something to deal with. Mustafa Gabar writes, the best 5 players at AFCON. We'll see if Sully agrees here. Mane, Mahrez, Mo Salah. I already have a problem with your number 3. Samuel Chukwueze and Guyane Ghana.
I have problem with 2 players.
Right.
Mahrez was nowhere to be found until the group stage, and then later
He's upset because he's knocked out Nigeria
No,
in the 95th minute free kick.
let us be honest.
Yeah.
Riyad Mahrez,
He had a slow start.
He left his scoring. He left his boots in Manchester City himself. He had a very slow start.
Played well against Senegal, though, even without scoring in that game, too.
But he came the first half. He disappeared.
Yeah.
He was nowhere to be found. The second half, he came out of his shell.
Yeah.
But he has not been consistent. Mohamed Salah, actually a little bit more consistent than Mahrez, but he had his moments as well too.
I've been holding off because people keep asking, but we got to get to a quick prediction for the AFCON final.
So my heart says Senegal. My head says Algeria.
Your head and my head are in the same place.
Yeah.
Because Algeria have been so Senegal up front, those front 3, whether it's Ismail Assar, whether Diatta moves into that position as he has before, whomever they start up front, like that's a really, really talented front 3. And with Aliou Cissé's system, because they get the ball forward to those guys in those 1v1 situations,
and then
they can turn games around without dominating.
They skip over the midfield as well too. Yeah. It's gonna be
So
exciting.
even without dominating, even without having their best game, they could be insanely dangerous. But Algeria have been so solid. They were so in control. Even with less possession, they controlled the match against Senegal in the group stage.
That's what I was about to say. That Senegal actually had more possession, but then again, like we say in Nigeria, who possession help?
Right. Which means possession means what?
Who does your possession help?
Gotcha. Well,
The average Nigerian would understand what I just said.
so I'm going to say 2-1 Algeria. And the only reason I see 3 goals in this and 2 for Algeria is no Koulibaly. And I know Salif Sané is fine and serviceable. He'll be alongside Kouyaté. They know each other. They've played before. But Koulibaly is just such a... I think his influence on the pitch, his organization of that back line is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, I hope it isn't.
I see. Quick reactions. Algeria 2-0, says Ahmed Bati. So he's on board with us. Ike Walton Torres has Senegal winning this. AFCON is an amazing tournament. That's the most correct thing said in this entire chat. I know it's a trope, there are no easy games at AFCON.
Nope.
Look at what Madagascar did at this AFCON. I can't believe I haven't mentioned them because I've been talking nonstop Madagascar. The people at the gas stations, I'm screaming about Madagascar. They've got no idea. They think I'm talking about a movie.
If you could tell me where Madagascar is on a map, I got $10 for you.
Like
and
his
not only
geography.
that, when you think Madagascar, you think the movie Escape to Madagascar.
Right.
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Peterson Bonifant says Senegal 1-0. It would be, have Algeria been shut out? They scored in every single game so far, right?
Yes,
So
they have, but they conceded 2 goals.
They did.
Yeah.
One
One against
penalty?
Nigeria and one against Ivory Coast, if I recall correctly. Yes.
Cool. And I think with that, we are done. For Sulaiman Folarin, I'm Andres Cordero. Thank you so much for spending time with us on Post to Post.